Okay, we're ready.
Welcome everybody to the council workshop on the 2nd of September. We have some items that we're going to work through tonight, and first will be a representation and a presentation from Bruno Tate. I understand you're going to present, and
Yes.
Peter
Yes.
and Guido, welcome to you gentlemen to come along. Your letter and your document has been circulated to the members, as I indicated to you, Bruno. So Martin will put the presentation up, the CEO will put the presentation up, and you'll be able to see that. And just Martin will move the screen on for you as you require. So
we can share the screen from our side, there's no problem. Okay.
Yeah, so there you go. So
Okay.
Bruno, welcome, as I said, and over to you, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. So yeah, so first of all, I'd like to say thank you for all the council to allow us to present our proposal, which is the development of a Southern Barossa Panoramic Drive. Again, you've met all of us here. My name is Bruno, Guido and Peter. The proposal that you've got, the hard proposal, has been put together by a number of the different businesses along Yaldara Drive. So that's what you've got also in front of you. So again, thank you. Just a bit of information about the slideshow itself. The pictures that you'll see are actual pictures taken from the various businesses. So what we wanted to try and do is just highlight the views that we get from Yaldara Drive and the businesses along Yaldara Drive. So this one is from Guido's place, and it shows the ranges in the background. So next slide. Okay, so this one here, one of the things that I wanted to emphasize and get across here is that we're talking about one Barossa. Even though we make it Southern Barossa Panoramic Drive, it's all about trying to give the tourist more opportunity or more things to see along in the Barossa, so they can stay longer. So that's hence why we called this particular slide the One Barossa. So Gummersol Road, reading the thing, Gummersol Road has allowed easy access to the for the tourists into the Barossa Valley, and it's been great for the Barossa. However, the traditional accesses to the Southern Barossa from Gawler has become increasingly difficult due to congestion in Gawler, and also car navigation systems send them through Gummersol Road. So over the last quite a few years, we've seen a decrease in numbers coming to the southern end of the Barossa. However, the sealing of Lyndoch Road, which the council assisted in, has been a real success and has given more opportunities to the Southern Barossa. So what our Southern Barossa Panoramic Drive would build on that great work done by the council and would add to the overall Barossa experience for tourists. The proposed Southern Panoramic Drive would lead off of Gummersol Road through the newly sealed Lyndoch Road and ultimately end up close to Yaldara. And Yaldara Drive also has a cluster of businesses that tourists would be able to enjoy the views that we have here in the Southern Barossa and high-end accommodation and winery experiences. So that's part of our proposal. The next slide. So again, this one is another view from Abbotsford Country House. So again, the Barossa range is in the background. So then the question is, what does the Southern Barossa offer? So if we go to the next slide. All right, so natural heritage. We have those unique landscapes that we see on our PowerPoint presentation. We've got spectacular views of those Barossa ranges. Someone said it's like sitting up there on Mengler's Hill, and it's our southern version of Mengler's Hill, I suppose one could say. The southern Barossa also has other experience such as helicopter flights, lavender farms, cycling, hiking, and the newly opened reservoirs have water sports. We have also heritage, history things as well in the southern Barossa. Winery experiences. We'll see in the next slide around where Yaldara is, we have a cluster of different wineries in a relatively short distance. So again, tourists would be able to visit a number of wineries within that short distance. Accommodation, Yaldara Drive actually has quite a few, a number of different high-end accommodation sites, which attract people who are willing to spend on those great experiences. So again, it's all about trying to keep people within the Barossa, not only southern Barossa, but also enjoy the whole Barossa. So, on the next slide. All right, so well, that's one of our views from Take Wines. So if we go next one. All right, so this one is a proposal, and I just got to emphasize it's a proposal. There's nothing definitely in concrete, but it's a proposal. And so the proposed southern Barossa Panoramic Drive would lead off of Gummersol Road, as you can see up the top. It would go down the newly seeded Lindock Road and end up at the first point would be Chateau Yaldara. You've also got, of course, Gummersol wines along the way. So as you can see, there's a cluster of businesses, wineries, accommodation that end up there. So on Yaldara Drive, the tourists would be able to enjoy those views that you've just seen over the Barossa Ranges before either heading south into Williamstown or back up north via the Barossa Valley Highway. So a southern Barossa Panoramic Drive would enhance that overall Barossa experience in encouraging people to stay and give them an alternative. So that's our proposed route. This one is again another view of the Barossa Ranges from Guido's place. So next one. All right, so what I wanted to do here is just to highlight for those people who haven't come up to see these some of the investments made. So on the top left, you've got Abbotsford Country House, and that's been that has, I think, 8 suites at the back. Yep. That hold people. You've got the Barossa Pavilions and the glass houses that was highlighted or featured on Grand Designs in Australia. You've got down on the bottom left, you've got 1837, these cottages with its own tennis court, which I think has recently been finished or completed. And then you've got down there at Yaldara, you've got 1847 Awesome Holidays accommodation. So I just wanted to highlight the amount of investment that's gone in. On our next slide, again, you've got the winery side. So you've got ourselves, you've got, again, 1837 Barossa Wine Centre, which is just in the final throes of being finalised. And that's going to feature various things. You've got 1847 Chateau Yaldara, that's been there for what, 70 years now? Yeah. So and again some pictures of those as well. So so again, those were just a highlight of different structures that we've got down here. So next slide. All right, so this is the crux of it. So the sealing of Yaldara Drive is what we think is the missing link to join these things together. So the current unsealed road really doesn't reflect the high quality tourist attractions on Yaldara Drive. So hire cars, for example, luxury cars, limousine services, cyclists really avoid an unsealed road, especially when it's wet, it's muddy, etc., etc. So it doesn't allow tourists to experience not only the businesses but also those views along Yaldara Drive. So we think a sealed road would allow a wider range of tourists to enjoy the views and also improve safety along the road, and also access the various businesses along the road. So we see the sealing of Yaldara Drive as an imperative to get this Southern Barossa Panoramic Drive really up and running. So again, it's a thank you to all of you guys for taking the time out, and an invitation to anyone that wants to come and have a look for themselves, the various businesses. So again, thank you very much for taking the time. Thanks. And any questions?
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Bruno. I see Councillor De Vries. David.
Thank you, Worship, and thank you, gentlemen, for a great presentation. I've been down to this location and driven around it with the Mayor, and I'm a big fan of what you're proposing. I think the Southern Barossa was hurt inadvertently, but there's no question, but significantly as a result of the sealing of Gomersaw Road. So there's something kind of sort of a nice reverse irony that as a result of that, Gomersaw Road might actually be the thing that will actually bring it back. One of the things that impressed me was that at 1837, that first view that we saw, for the benefit of the councillors who weren't aware, that is actually the first view that Colonel Light actually took of the Barossa. And when he actually did his first drawing, that was the view. That sculpture of the light on the horse that you saw there in Guido's place was that was, if you like, our Plymouth Rock. And there are very few regions in Australia, or really for that place in the world, where you can actually say that standing on there, the person who ultimately said, named the place and decided that this was going to be a region, you can actually identify that place. And I was kind of blown away by the significance of it, and yet it's on a dirt road. And it's, as a result, not really accessed by the tourists, and many tourists aren't even aware that it exists. There's a lot of amazing wineries around that area that can all be linked up very easily because they're all linked together. And that circuit not only links up to Gomersaw Road, but of course it links back through to the Chateau Yaldara. You can then come back around through Charles Simicky's and so forth and do the loop down the southern end as well. And then if you want, then loop it up to God's Hill Road and take in the other part of Blindock. So I think this, from a strategic point of view, from a tourism point of view, would breathe a lot of life into the Southern Barossa. The Northern Barossa has done very well of late. I think the South has needed some support and some love. And I'm really delighted that you guys have put this presentation together. And I think not only, as you said, is this going to be wonderful for tourism, but I think it's also going to value add to the roads themselves, the road network itself, and provide a much better experience for people coming into the valley, and also for the locals who will be able to experience many of these wineries and that particular location, many of whom aren't even aware of it. So thank you so much for coming, gentlemen, and sharing that with us. You can probably guess I'm very much in support. Thank you, Worship.
Thank you so much.
David Haybeck.
Yeah, thanks very much. I'd just like to say that when I read the report, the submission, I was well informed. It was very well put together, and there's a lot of good information in there, and we'll take that on hand, and I wish you the best of luck. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Henry. Thank you.
Leonie.
Thanks, Mayor. And again, I just basically reinforce both of the David's comments. I have been out to Abbotsford House and the Barossa Pavilions relatively recently, and had long conversations with both Julian and James. I'm one of the two council reps on the Tourism Barossa board, and we have been having a lot of discussion recently around tourism sub-regions, if you like, and the Southern Barossa is definitely been a topic of conversation in terms of the increased amount of product and experience that's there, and all the great attributes that the sub-region has. One of the things that I think is really to be of note is that the energy, enthusiasm, the great collaboration that the Southern Barossa has now. So both in tourism and more broadly in business and the community. And again, I really, applaud the work you guys have put into bringing this to us. And I think it's one of the things that can be a divider is the romance of dirt roads versus the ability for sealed roads to provide an easier experience. So you will please some and displease others potentially in terms of that experience development. But I think listening to tourism operators and businesses, along that road is part of what we, are here for. And I think you have communicated really well what the need and benefit is. So yeah, thank you for that.
Thank you.
Just with that, I have pointed out to Bruno and Guido that there may be a case that if council decides, and we don't make any decisions here tonight, of course, but at some later stage when we consider further, it may be a project that may sit well with special local roads funding under the tourism umbrella. But just with Bruno and your presentation, there's still a section of Yaldara Drive which, to all intents and purposes, looks as if it's a public road, but it does go onto private land. So we've just got to work through some of those issues and look at that connection that you highlighted in your presentation. Now, Martin, and then I've got Councillor Angus.
Oh, you stole part of my thunder, Mr. Mayor.
Sorry. Okay.
I guess the interesting thing, and thanks, gentlemen. I mean, we're not sitting here realising it's going to happen this year because obviously we're pretty full. But I guess if we're going to come up with a strategy to help make this work, the Lindock Road was a strategy that we came up with as a council to actually get Lindock Road to work. And I think the same strategy would potentially work here, and perhaps in the next 3 or 6 months we can start working something up and getting it through that special local roads program. And that's essentially what we did for Lindock Road. And I realised it's in a neighbouring council, but as you know, Bim.
Yep.
You did. You and Matt did the heavy lifting. So I think it's an exciting opportunity, and people are patient. We'll come up with some sort of strategy that might work over the next year or two.
John Angus, Councillor Angus. Thanks, Martin.
Thanks, Bim. And gentlemen, what a great presentation, and what a great jam you have in the Southern Barossa as a kind of northeastern Barossan. Some of the photos that you had there are just absolutely stunning. And I just want to remind everyone that all of those vistas don't include gutter-to-gutter housing, and councillors will be raising their eyebrows and rolling their eyes at because it's my hobby horse is not to ever have that kind of development imposed upon the Barossa. It's got to go somewhere, but it's not going to go in grape growing good farming land and all that. So we appreciate the vistas that you have, and also not only that, the economic value of that land as productive agricultural land, and also as scenery. It is truly beautiful and world class. So congratulations for bringing it to our attention, and I hope we can do something positive towards the road issues that you've outlined. So well done.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. No other comments or questions? If not, I think, gentlemen, you've presented extremely well, and as I've sort of always been gobsmacked when I've gone up there and picking up your presentation earlier this week, Guido, you've done a lot of brilliant work up there on your premises, and it's a remarkable investment, along with other people associated with that region. So look, as is indicated, we can sort of take on board what you've said, and then see how we go in the future. And as indicated earlier and mentioned by Martin, it may lend itself very nicely for special local roads funding in the future and further deliberation by council in a budget allocation. So thanks very much, folks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then again, if you guys, anyone wants to come up and visit us, you guys are more than welcome. Okay.
See you on Saturday.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for that. Cheers.
Hang on, Ben. Just give me a minute.
Yep.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I'm good to go. Yep.
Okay, the next presentation is the Cromer Crossing roundabout. Look, and with this one, I'm going to take the hit or whatever hits there is, or if there's anything associated with that. The roundabout is sort of, as we all understand, it's been an engineering project that Matt's been working diligently with. And of course, the roundabout and the landscaping is something that we've all discussed from time to time. The community's had a bit of input into it all. And from there, we sort of looked at some concepts. But what I want to suggest to you today, this evening, and Martin, you've got that presentation there somewhere, have you?
Sorry, Bim. Which one do you want? The roundabout, or do you want Matt's presentation?
I was going to move with the one that Steve and I had a look at.
So you want this one?
Yeah, this one.
Oh no, wrong one. All right.
So where we got to is that we talked about the roundabout, and look, I'll admit my focus was on the roundabout itself, you know, the drain and everything else. But now that all of the fringe work has been taken away, and driving it around it, and Matt kindly gave me Steve yesterday to go and look at a couple other things. So while we was down there, and seeing it's all been sprayed and looks nice and green at the moment with the wonderful goo that's been put on it, you start to rethink just exactly where we're up to in all of this. And Matt's provided some information relevant to the landscaping and all those things. Now, look, without a doubt, we haven't got the money to spend on the landscaping to the Rolls Royce. There's been issues, and Matt's been diligently working with the department, endeavouring to get whatever money we can out of it. At one stage there was no money because it's all gone over budget, but we've been fortunate enough to squirrel out 20,000 at this particular time, which, you know, is something, but it's also nothing in the context of everything. So with that in mind, just going down there with everything cleared off around the side, you start to look at the lines and the approaches in a little bit more detail. And so some of the things that Steve was suggesting, and on the presentation that you've got there, if we start up on that northern quadrant as we come down from Newry, for instance, as Martin's indicating, there's a little cluster of trees there that just needs to probably stay there. It hides a Stovey pole and a few other things. But the important thing is the continuation of the rose hedge, which has gone in over many years and is very much part of this approach as you come in from the northern area and the seeing it from coming from the southern area. So what Steve has considered is just bringing those extras. You'll see the larger red dots is adding a little half circle in there and just filling in that little quadrant, keeping that rose theme and that alignment coming into there. There's also some old remnant posts that have been sitting there on the other side in front of the cellar door, that those things can just be tidied up and improve the appearance. As we move into Vinevale Road, there's already some some existing trees that has been retained. And as you can see further up the road, there's a number of, and I think they may be, well, I don't know what they are. We're going to check it to make sure. But there's also a couple in the island area. Steve's drawn in 4, but it might be 2 or 3, just to keep that same theme moving into your approach into the intersection. So it keeps it a little bit uniform, utilising some of the existing plantings that are in the approaches. And of course, if you go around onto Mingy Road, we have the continuation of some roses that's existing, and they just do that little connection as you come in from that stem. Then there's the area that stands out more than anything in this whole area is our drainage reserve and some of the work that's gone on in that area. And what we're sort of suggesting here is that we've got the little PEDREF there, and at some stage it was always envisaged, and that's still a decision for council in the future, is a connection with a future cycling path, an extension along the rail corridor which connects into the school precinct. But future development with Tanunda East is the funding to continue along the rail corridor, which brings us into the area around Bazadow Road and the Tanunda Institute and the Tanunda Club, and right into the main street of Tanunda. So it provides that connection not only for the school kids, but also part of that link into the back or into the centre of the town without having to go down the Murray Street with the conflict with traffic. So what we sort of looked at out there was, rather than get all bogged down on the roundabout at this time, these are some things that could be undertaken reasonably easily at the moment, relatively cheap, so that we're actually getting those approaches right, and then sitting back and then seeing what's really needed then, and taking into account at some stage we've got further development on the southeastern quadrant with another winery come Cellar, I think, from memory, and we've got other things that's being talked about in respect to the future hotel motel, if those things ever come along. So what I'm suggesting is, it may be worth just tidying up these approaches for now, and then just stepping back and having a look at the roundabout and just see what is best in the future, considering there isn't much money at the moment, and taking into account everyone's thoughts. So, Matt, do you want to add anything further with regard to some of your stuff? But that was and we got a greater feel yesterday just looking at it now with all the plant gone and everything else, and they were the things that leaped out at us that appeared to be ticking all the boxes in this first instance. Now, I think just David, I think you're there. Okay.
Yep.
Oh, sorry. I did invite Matt, so I better just let Matt, because Matt, you want to add anything further?
No, Ben, that's a good summary. I guess we've tried to get an outcome. The focus has been on the infrastructure and getting that right. And absolutely, I think there's opportunity at some point to do something with this roundabout. The point I do highlight is for us to do any work or maintenance on the roundabout itself. So if we're to put work crews on that centre of that roundabout for any longer than 20 minutes, we need to put traffic management in place. So that's bringing an 80 down to a 60 to a 25, and then and that's on three sections of road, and the other is obviously Barossa Valley Way coming from 60 to 25. So I just want to highlight there's a lot of we try and aim for minimal maintenance on our roundabouts, because it is very onerous for us to get in there and do the work, which is similar for a lot of councils as well.
Thanks, Matt. David.
That's good to know. So obviously whatever we do needs to be, as you say, low maintenance. Look, this area has the potential, I think, to become quite iconic. As the northern entrance into Tanunda, you're going to have 2 wineries when Artisans joins the fray. There's a potential for a 5-star accommodation, and of course the chocolate factory is also gathering a lot of support. And if you haven't been there, you'd be amazed how many people are visiting that. so much so that they had to put in a second car park within, I think it was about 3 months. And even with the COVID issue, people still seem to be coming. So I think this, some of you may be aware, I actually met up with, there's a group who you probably saw on our emails, was contacting us about tree plantings in Tanunda. I met with them a week and a bit ago, actually. And one of the things they talked about was the roundabout, and they said that, can we do something about it to make it look, inviting, and for it to tie in with, to make the northern entrance, if you like, of Tanunda to some extent as inviting as the southern entrance. And their suggestion was such things as extending the rose bushes, which is what His Worship's just spoken about, and even maybe matching some of the tree species with the same tree species as we see in the cutting. And I think there's some merit in exploring all of that. I agree with Bim that I think spending $250,000, at this point is clearly, I think we would need a lot more thought going into it. And I think that maybe we should be talking to those potential groups who are going to be, if you like, sharing the roundabout and being the neighbours there, that maybe we can come to talk to them about some sort of visual approach which unifies that area, so that it is something, because people, I assume, are going to be sitting out in the front of the wineries having wine, looking out over it. It'd be nice if the space was something that, is worthy of witnessing. My great concern with the part in the centre is it looks like a drain. And, I just think, the central point of what is potentially an iconic entrance into a town being, for want of a better word, a glorified gutter seems to me to be rather disappointing. And if there's a way that could be minimised, the visual impact, even if it is literally surrounded by hedges or something, and the hedges don't have to be the type that need to be heavily maintained. They could be stuff that, and we've seen this before, native grasses, other approaches which can sort of, basically be more or less self-maintained. So I agree with pretty much everything Bim's saying. I think there are a lot of things that we can do to the approaches. I think this is an area that we do need to be mindful of. I don't want to just sort of put this to one side and say, okay, well, we don't have the money now, we'll deal with it later, and then this goes off the boiler. And then every time it comes up, 6 months, in a year's time, 2 years, 3 times, there'll always be a reason why, we don't want to spend money on this area. So I'd like to see some sort of long-term strategy in place, so that we don't just shelve it and then it's something that we have to get back on the agenda every time that this comes up. But other than that, I pretty much endorse everything Bim's saying. But I would like to also see if maybe we could get the other wineries that are there, or will soon be there, and the chocolate factory, all engaged in the discussion as well, and see what they think we could do. It doesn't need to be expensive, but I think we do need to think about it. It is an important area, and it's certainly going to be one that a lot of visitors are going to be going through, and I don't think a gutter is, the view that I'd like them to take away from it. Thanks.
Thanks, Dave. David Haybuck, and then Carla.
So just going on from there, what I like to see, and people have spoken to me about it, is that this area there now will probably be, it could be one of the biggest tourist attractions we can make for the area, because of the number of people that are going to come in from the 3 big towns and elsewhere that are going to go around there. So we need to make a statement there, so that an everlasting statement, so that people see something and not just grass or a couple of trees. So we need to do some planning, and I'm with Dave there that we don't need to do it overnight. We need to put a lot of thought into this, because if we let it go, we'll miss out. And I think that if it's done right, it would look really good. Thanks.
Thanks, David. Yeah, Carla, and then Russell.
Yeah, just wanted to say I like what's being proposed so far. I think one thing we need to keep in mind with any future planning here is a lot of time and effort has gone into improving the safety at this intersection. So we want to make sure that anything that goes in there maintains the safety and visibility through that roundabout there. So, the idea of some nice low-lying bushes sounds great, but with a few future additions. I'm sure the community would like to know whether or not any thought has been given to paying tribute to our rail heritage through there.
Thank you. Yes, yes, yes. I'm hearing you. Russell. Turn your mic on, Russ.
Sorry, I've been muted. So what did I say? So thank you, Matt, for putting together the plan. I think it gives us something to aim for, and I think I'd just like to remind elected members and others that we do in fact have the Barossa Bush Gardens, and we host an organisation called Seeding Natives, and having local plants as part of that iconic entrance that people have talked about, I think would be really important. I like the idea of trying to obscure the drainage aspect of it with some stands of native grasses or something would be really worthwhile, but you need to put the gauntlet down to the Bush Gardens people to make sure they can come up with something that will work and will in fact survive with low maintenance that's been described by Matt in terms of not being able to access it. For the future, yes, I'm inclined to agree with David. A bloody great big sculpture would be amazing. And, imagine the bicycles and the tour down under going through there, or other people entering the town. If you had something, some sort of static commissioned piece of artwork, but that I think is a long way off. But it'd be, I just recall entering towns in France and they compete with each other about what installations are on their roundabouts, and they're really important.
Metal wine bottle.
Thanks, Russell. Any further comments or discussions? I'm sort of sensing that, and Matt, just a question to you. I know that the original rose garden planting or the hedge was done by some of our service clubs. Would there be any issues if I am speaking to a service club tomorrow night, if we can get hold of some roses and start putting some plants along those areas where we've talked about the roses? Is there any health and safety issues that we would need to do relevant to signage if they're in that area, or is, just to keep the thing moving?
Yeah, look, we can entertain that. It would need to be under our supervision. So we'd put traffic management in place to maintain the safety of those people working in what would be a council work zone.
No, thanks for that. And look, there's some of the things that was achieved many years ago, and it gives some of these service clubs, they quite often ask, is there any little projects we can get involved in? So if there's an appetite to be involved, if everyone's agreeable to it, we can sort of pursue that and just sort of do some of those things that we'd sort of highlighted in the interim, and then really think a little bit further about the centre of the roundabout as to what is going to be the best long-term fix for that, rather than sort of trying to deal with it all at once. Any other further comments? Oh, hang on, I've got a few more there. Martin McCarthy, and then Kathy Schilling, and John Angus.
Thanks, Bim. I'll defer to what was just said, actually, and I just think it's all great, but just remember we've got something like 30 other entrances to our townships.
Not all at the one place.
Thank you. Kathy.
Yeah, look, I just would like to know how come we're discussing this when it's already completed, and why we didn't have some sort of idea of what this was going to look like and have it built into our current budget. Have I missed something in this conversation? But I agree with Councillor Johnson about using the bush gardens. They have some great plants that would match in with the roses, the red rose look as well. But I'm just not sure how come we haven't prepared for this. If Martin, can you answer that, please?
Oh, I can answer that one, Councillor Schilling. So on the plan that on the presentation I submitted, there was notionally a plan with concentric rings of two plantings and some stone to be placed in the centre of the roundabout, and that was costed up by the contractor, and the cost came back in at $70,000, which exceeded the allowance from the project or from DIPD. So it was because of the size of the area, it was a much greater cost than what was expected. So council had always planned just to do some minor plantings, and then the suggestion was, well, what would it cost if we do something more significant? And that's when I had a look at getting a cost from a consultant to do something a bit more grand, just to give us an idea. So yes, we council through our maintenance budget have always committed to doing some work in there. We were caught out by the size of it and the placement of the stone, particularly in the middle.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, John Angus.
Thanks, Bim. I dropped out for a little while, so I hope I'm not too far behind in the conversation. But my recollection with the Seppelsfield Road roundabout, where the Seppelsfield Road Business Alliance wanted to put palm trees in the middle of that roundabout, DIPT vetoed that. So we have to be a little bit careful about what we plan for. Look, I'm happy. I think DIPT were being quite ridiculous in disallowing what was proposed because of, it interfered with sightlines. Well, actually, you look to the left and you look to the right. You don't actually look across the roundabout, and so it's a moot point. But they're the rules we seem to have to live with. But yeah, some sort of treatment, or any sort of treatment would be good. Thanks.
Thanks, John. Matt, I see you're there. You want something further to say?
Yeah, look, just in response to Councillor Angus, and I think Councillor Wade-Smith also raised this issue. There's what's called an operating instruction from DIT, or DIT is now called, Department of Infrastructure and Transport. So anything we do in that roundabout, whether it's a large sculpture or landscaping, it needs to comply with that operating guideline. So notionally, what we'd had sketched up from the consultant had considered that, but ultimately we do have to give those plans to DIT for approval.
Just on that point, Matt, what we sort of talked about tonight with the rose hedge and some of that tidying up, you wouldn't see that as being a significant issue as far as they're concerned?
No.
David de Vries and then Russell.
Thanks again, Your Worship. Yeah, I've always been curious about this sightlines thing. When I drive through a roundabout, I don't actually look across it. In fact, if I did, I would probably get killed because I should be looking to the left and the right. Maybe, Matt, we could get some sort of rationale as to why that is such an issue. I've never really fully understood it. Having been to Paris and seen the Arc de Triomphe, it's bloody hard looking through that. And that roundabout surprisingly does remarkably well. So there's a lot of roundabouts in the world. I don't believe that this is a problem, as I think it was David Haybick was saying. Different regions compete for this type of thing. So could we actually find out what the rules and regulations are and the rationale behind them? Because they do seem a little bit arbitrary to me. And if it's for safety, I'd love to know how not seeing in a direction that the traffic is not coming from is going to be an issue. I'm not saying that there's no logic behind it, but I'm struggling to understand it at the moment, and I wouldn't mind maybe finding out why those sightline issues. Then we'll work within the rules as they are, but I'd like to know what the rules are and why they exist the way they do.
Here.
Russell and then Martin.
Can I just ask a question of Matt? In that concept diagram that you've got of the roundabout, what were the vertical poles, please?
I'm assuming you're referring to the rail. They were sections of rail, or they may have been sleepers, depending. Rail sleepers, I think. I don't have it in front of me.
Yeah, I've got it up on screen.
Yeah, no, that's correct. That was some of the thought of having rail sleepers.
Yeah.
You know what?
Yeah, but
just quickly an aside, just a very quick aside, is what's fascinating about that is that over at Kapunda in that new little square thing, there's a Nadgery section, and it's got little poles arranged like that. It's weird.
Martin, and then David Hovick.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'd love to answer that question, Councillor Johnson, with a different answer, but I'll just move on. My point is we'd be more than happy to get you the information, but can we just perhaps do this in a two-stage process and not wrap Matt up with a whole pile of legal mumbo-jumbo with dits until we actually come up with something?
Yeah, no, it's fair enough. And yep, gotcha. David Hovick.
Yeah, getting back to the line of vision, it wasn't me, Dave, that mentioned that, but I will say this, that this roundabout, well, let me start off by saying that the smaller the roundabout, the worse it is for line of vision. The bigger the roundabout is, the more line of vision you've got. When you enter a roundabout, one has to give way to the traffic on the right. Also look to your left, but it's on the right. This roundabout that we've got is so big that you can see miles on either direction around the roundabout and so forth. So I don't see there's too many issues with line of vision, but we can't block it out altogether, but there is very, very good line of vision on that roundabout.
Thank you. Look, I'm sort of sensing that we're okay to carry those lines on and do some plantings and work something up without getting it too complicated at the moment. You know, some roses and some of that level of work. Is that the general consensus for Matt to have a look at, see how we can come away with it? Yep. All right. Thank you for that one. Martin, change program, I believe.
Thanks, Ben. This was one of the things that was requested of me a little while ago about where we are with the change program. Hopefully you can remember where the change programs sits within the organisation. At the end of the day, it's about just continually to improve what we're doing, get more efficient, and align ourselves to modern solutions and modern customer service. So I'm certainly not going to go through all the slides. There is also an attachment with we do track everything we achieve, and whilst we call it the change program, this is probably iteration 4 or 5, because even when Bim and I were director and CEO, we started doing this. So we're not going to stop. But what we anticipated, which I briefed you all with the induction process, the previous council and the executive had done a organisational review, a service review, and we're starting, in essence, rolling that out. So it is basically around 5 particular programs at the moment, very high level programs, and it really is linked to 3 key external facing services, which is our development and planning stuff. It's about how we manage customer request management, and I have a really good story coming into the quarterly report. We are so close to achieving the target, which is the first time in a long time in terms of responses, which is great, and a lot of that is actually put down to how we are starting to manage our customer requests. And the third major issue, which is really a crux to the whole thing, and Jo Thomas might want to talk about this bit because she certainly leads that one, and Matt leads the work we're doing in terms of the depot component of our CRM activity, and Gary leads the development activities. There are two other internal projects, which I guess you would be aware, something like the agenda management system fits nicely into the internal projects, and the other one, for example, that we're working on now is the website. So, you know, I'll do this more by questions, but I just asked Joe Moen, who heads up the project, generally, what would we say the top 5 achievements are in the last 12 months? I will say COVID has absolutely cost us 4 to 5 months, but we are now re-engaging. So we introduced a customer service charter. We did whole of organisation training to try and start, well, not start, but grow our understanding that customers are actually at the centre of everything we do, and that's why we exist. The second one is to rolling out online services. That's also linked to the whole issue of the website that's coming, the customer request systems. We now actually have an end-to-end development application process, from lodging it at the front counter to doing the sign-offs and the certifications of development and building rules. We are that includes doing it online via a phone or via a smart tablet. We've introduced a whole pile of new customer request processes, and the next stage that we'll start heading to is linking the back into that. And number 5 there talks about electronic playground and tree inspections, etc., etc. A lot of this sounds very boring, I know, compared to you know, doing roundabouts and roads, but this is the bread and butter of what we do most of the day, every day. And also introducing our electronic solutions. So pretty much the internal change program, the strategy is around a 24/7 customer engaged or customer centric service. So that's what we would say the top 5 achievements so far. There's lots more than that, and we provided you a spreadsheet of that. So as I said, the project is broken down into 5 specific areas. This is the customer reboot program, where we've talked about the 24/7 online service. Even things as small as new residence kits. We've just picked a few random ones. Some are big, some are small.
Martin, I'll just hang on a sec. Russell, did you have something on particularly where Martin was up to at that point?
Yes, just a quick one. Would it be fair to say that in terms of the culture inside the organisation with respect to customer service, would it be possible to think about whether or not people see their internal workmates as customers as well as external customers, please?
Yeah, absolutely, they do. So the internal, we talk about customer service as an external and internal process, but they go hand in hand. So COVID-19 has shown us we've got to get efficiencies through things like, could be things like accounts payable or whatever. So as we improve our IT services internally, we improve external outcomes. Absolutely. Obviously, what we want to improve is our external delivery of outcomes and outputs. Yeah. But the agenda management system is actually a really good example of what we're trying to achieve, in that if we can do that more efficiently, I can put resources into more and better outcomes. Yep. It's about moving local government into the 21st century. And we're certainly not ahead of the curve, but we're well ahead of many others too. So, so the customer service reboot is really at the crux of everything where we started. So, and what hinges off that is the development and the external facing customer response programs, which is not just MAD either, but you know, general inspectors, dogs, leases, licenses, events, etc., etc. There's 50, 60 different services we provide that would link into that. As I said, I'm not going to go through it all. You can ask me questions. Field operations is the other, is the next one, and that links to Matt's area. And I've talked about this often. Ultimately, a bit like development, it's from beginning to end digitally and data-based. And what we hope to be able to achieve ultimately is that we will drive our outside staff and through really smart technology and really up-to-date smart tech, data. And the examples I've always given is, you know, if you happen to be in a particular area because it's Williamstown Day, I shouldn't pick on Williamstown, but and a request comes through and they're there, then at the moment it's a paper-based system. So they go back to the office, so they get back to Williamstown for 2 days or 2 weeks. They could do it straight away. So that's the sort of stuff we're talking about. We're also looking at structures and how we can best support that within resources. The lodgement inspection is really probably our most advanced technical program, and that is really about lodging a development application to getting the final outcome. So you've got your tick off, your house is done, your building's done, whatever it is. And what we're talking here is more about the technical component. The next 2 programs, which are internal, this is about the people stuff. So it's about some of the stuff we've talked about around the development issues over the last couple of meetings, and we're working on that. It's about making sure we take appropriate risks, we back our staff, and we continue to grow the organisational culture. And you know, if you do enough reading around management and contemporary management theory, and this is cliche, but I believe it, culture eats strategy for breakfast. You can have as much strategy as you like, but if the culture's not right, you won't achieve it. So what we're trying to do in this space in terms of the people and the risk, so the people is around the culture, the risk is about taking acceptable risks, reducing burden, but also empowering our staff. They know how to do things safely or make decisions that are logical for a person that wants to have an 8-year-old birthday party at a property, and making sure that that's all aligned and customer centric. Obviously, COVID is some interesting components in that we're trying to now accelerate. So internally, your organisation has run manual timesheets. So they have to be developed by somebody, they have to be inputted by somebody, and they need to be reconciled. So same with accounts payable, where everything was signed or ticked or et cetera, et cetera. So we've had to rapidly move to an electronic system. I'm not saying that we've actually got the efficiencies out of that, but we've just had to do it. Now we're about to implement an accounts payable electronic process across 150 people that tick off on invoicing. That will lead to efficiencies. And the last, people and risk is 2 independent programs. So what do we want to do going forward? Yes, we want to get accounts payable sorted out. We've got the agenda management rolling out. A really big chunk of work is the depot operations and supporting them in terms of structure and hazard reporting and customer requests. The new website implementation, the HR programs, and that really addresses probably the first 12 months of what was identified as well over 70 to 80 different change opportunities from the external review we did some years ago. I also provided you a spreadsheet of all the different bits and pieces that we've achieved so far. We had some really great momentum going before COVID-19, and now we've had to pick it back up again. So more than happy to say that some things have slowed down a smidge. The asset management review is also another critical component, where if we can get the asset management data absolutely spick, and we can have the systems integrated and we can drive it by technology, I think we have our next level of customer outcomes, but also efficiency outcomes. So that's what we're trying to do. It's a very short component of lots and lots of work. What I will do is see if by any other directors and want to comment on where they're at with their particular projects, and then I'll open up for any questions. Joe, Matt, Gary, do you want to say anything? You're all part of this program too.
Yeah, sure. I can step in terms of the work that we're doing in. Sorry, Martin. Can we just get that presentation up on?
Yep.
Asset management. Thank you. So the two, the first dot point there is that's just something that's happened. The team are now using mobile devices to do their playground inspections, which were all done paper-based. And as Martin's highlighted, that's a lot of duplication. Martin, I've got your email showing. So.
Have I?
The asset management, as Martin's highlighted, that's a huge piece of work, and that's really about using Conquest to be our sort of single source of truth, and that will provide us with the information that we need for preventive maintenance. There's always going to be reactive maintenance. There'll always be customer requests. There's a large amount of work that we do, whether it be in the swim space, whether it's our sealed road reseals, our resheets. All this data is sitting there, and we need it to be coming out of Conquest. We need Conquest to be scheduling our preventive maintenance programs. So that is the work we're doing at the moment. We're looking at that data. We're making sure we've got the right assets, we've got the right data against those assets and the right attributes, and that's where we're at the moment. And the final piece of work there is a review of the, that's focused around particularly the inside staff at the Tanunda depot and the Williamstown depot, but the inside staff, so the project officers, the administration, and the team leads, so really the leadership of that depot, to ensure that we're doing, we've got the right people doing the right things to deliver our service, our agreed service levels. And that's really the two very large pieces of work that are underway at the moment for us.
Thanks, Matt. Carla, I see you got a question there, and then Joe, we'll just bring you on then. Carla.
Yeah, I've got a question for Martin. Do you want Joe to go and then I'll come back?
No, look, you're
there.
You go for it. Yep.
That's cool. Just on the culture, Martin, having myself had to lead organisations through significant periods of change, I can't agree more that that is one of the key elements to anything like this. I'm keen to know what sort of things you and the management team are doing to improve the culture, and whether or not you've seen any changes yet.
Yeah, good. Yeah, great question. So I guess when I first got to the Barossa Council, we used a methodology called human synergistics, where we've now moved into more recent project called PQ Factor or Team Gauge. I'd be more than happy to show you how that works, but that has monthly reviews of various indicators of culture that report up to managers, directors, and myself, and we put programs in place to support those outcomes. We have leadership programs, mentoring programs, whether they be internal or external, and obviously training and development programs. A lot of work's also being done throughout the organisation in terms of empowerment, accountability, and true, what's the right word? Connection from community plans to what people do on the ground, and embedding that in annual reviews. And these are holistic systems that we've developed over years and will continue to develop. So there's a myriad things that we do, Carla, absolutely. And the whole idea is obviously to try and help our staff and our organisation collaborate better, be responsible for things, be empowered to do things. Do we always get it right? No, we don't. What organisation does, but you know, things like having honest conversations, dealing with learning when something goes wrong, congratulating people when things go right, are all at the crust and the crutch of what we're trying to do. I'd be pleased to show you some of that stuff if you'd like. It's actually very low cost, and we do and it's not necessarily about cost, but and we do also that human synergistics organisational survey, and we develop action plans and we measure those action plans in terms of how we're improving. There's variability across the organisation, and we'll continue to invest our efforts to support our staff be the best they can, and also sometimes that doesn't work, and we'll support them to take whatever that next step is for them as well.
And just to follow from that, are staff encouraged to sort of try and come up with their own ways of improving culture within teams and across the organisation?
Absolutely. So the way the PQ factor thing and survey stuff works, which just so happened we started the program in April this year, which wasn't probably the greatest time to actually start a new culture program, but anyhow. So basically what's expected of them and their managers is to have a team catch up over those across that data and talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, come up with actions, and those actions are then rolled up through the organisation. So if I take my group, and I guess at the end of the day I have two groups, I have my exec services group and I have my executive group. So the survey literally can take as short as 20 seconds, can be done on a phone, and then we sit down and we talk about that for half an hour about what are the lessons in it, and we come up with some actions. So if I give you one example for my executive services team, people wanted to in that group, there's 7 of us, felt that there'd be great value in learning non-verbal communications and actually how to understand that in a setting. And because sometimes a lot of communication is not verbal, it's non-verbal, and how we can learn from that. So that's an example of people weren't feeling that some of the communication was great, so but they felt it wasn't necessarily verbally, it was about understanding how we communicate otherwise. One particular example. And there's lots across the organisation, and all my 3 directors are doing the same thing, and then the managers are doing the same thing as well. Joe.
Yeah, thanks for that. So I was just going to touch back on what Martin was talking about in relation to CRMs, or as a lot of people refer to them as customer requests management, but our philosophy is actually much more about what it actually stands for, which is customer relationship management, and that care and experience that people have when they come and do business with us or have a touch point with us for any reason, and that more case management approach, and encouraging our frontline officers to take that care and relationship approach. And I think it's similar to what the discussion around the planning and development piece that we had at the previous one of the previous sessions, and the ability for then that to cut through and give people visibility across the whole organisation and take responsibility and accountability across the whole organisation, just not for their piece of that puzzle. So that's very much where I see the real value coming from. But that also means that we have to really value our customer support officers. They are just as important as our planners and our works guys and our accountants, and they are the first people that on a lot of occasions that our customers come into contact with. So yes, and fundamentally the culture that they display is our shop window. So so that's certainly some of the stuff that we're focusing on at the moment around the customer service reboot piece, and if we have those right skills and whether we're supporting that learning and development and continuous improvement.
Thanks, Joe. Gary, did you want to add anything, or?
Yep, just very briefly, just in terms of obviously the lodgement to inspection, it does overlap as to what Joe just said. We've been working very closely with the customer support team to identify how they can improve and assist our team, particularly around with the pending new legislation and how that will operate. So ultimately that will rely on us providing training opportunities for customer support officers to provide that front end service. As has been said before many a time, main part of the lodgement to inspection project has been working at the back end, looking at our pathway system, which is our workflow, making sure that appropriate workflow tasks and end dates are captured in the system, so then that we can actually provide meaningful reporting. In terms of where we're at, most of the front end and the assessment and decision-making phases of that project are complete. Just prior to the COVID commencement, we were embarking on the inspections and compliance modules for the whole life cycle. So yeah, now that we are sort of getting our heads back into this space, yeah, the back end is the key focus to complete. So that way, once the government is ready to turn on the new planning design code for full electronic lodgement and processing, we will have an equal system in dealing with the old applications under the Development Act going forward until that turns off at some point. Thanks.
Thanks, Gary. Any other questions, comments? Okay.
Hang on, Ben, can I have a chat?
Yes, go for it. Yeah, John, yes, I just see that. Yep.
Go back to and reiterate what Joe was saying, and particularly with our customer service staff. I have had a number of very positive comments about how people have rung up. Someone on the front desk has known exactly who to refer these people to. They haven't had the runaround. And I certainly, when I talk to Nick or Belinda or whoever's on the front desk, about a random thing, oh yes, I know about that. So I have to say the system is working, and I think the public are taking notice. So, well done to you all.
Yeah, well said, John. Well said. Kathy Troop.
I'd just like to echo what John said, because also I know that the customer service officers and some librarians have been taking the brunt of the Barossa Cares website during COVID. So I'd like to really, there has been a significant sense of care that's been coming across from the council, even responding to those Barossa Cares phone calls. There's not been a whole lot, but at least they were there, and there's been such a good response from them. So, Joe, just let them know that I think people are listening, and that we're hearing good things when on that front-facing phone calls. And so it's very encouraging. So well done.
Great, thanks. I'll pass that back.
Yep, thanks, Martin.
I just wanted to make also an observation. I'm not detracting from any of my staff, but you know what? We're actually all in the game of customer service, and our customer service guys do a great job, but they can only do a great job if they're supported by the other 3 units in the organisation and vice versa. So Everybody's doing their best to improve the project, improve the system, sorry. And our customer teams do a great job, but they can only do so much, like Gary said, if they're properly informed. And, you know, the depot guys can only do so much if they're properly informed, and I can only do so. It's a team thing, and yes, the customer service team do take the brunt of it at times, and they don't have as much flexibility in the workplace either. But yeah, and we'll continue to get better. But I guess my message is they're doing a great job generally, and we'll continue to get better. I think the really interesting thing is when we did the whole organisational customer support training, we all had different ideas about what customer support was, or customer services was all about. So that was a learning in itself. So we had to go back to some of the beginnings and how the right way to announce phone calls and transfer knowledge, so that when you are transferred to the person, it's the right person, all those sorts of things. So the team's working really hard together, and we've come a long way, and we'll keep pumping it forward. But I guess my summary is, from myself to anybody, we're all in the game of customer service.
Thanks, Martin. David DeVries just mentioned, and we won't click on it now, but Matt's put up some information. So if you want to look at that a little bit later, just be aware that Matt's put that up relevant to the various codes and standards. Russell, you had a comment you wanted to make?
And dare I say, we have a role as well. Thank you.
Absolutely. All right. I think we can sort of wrap that one up. We now do have a confidential item to discuss. So, Martin, you'll sort of take care of that recording.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, I'll stop the recording and I'll start it when we finish.
Thank you.
Hang on. Yep.
Thanks, everybody. We've dealt with that confidential matter, and so thanks for everybody's input tonight. And our next workshop, I think, would be scheduled for around about the 7th of October, unless something else pops up. So thanks for your input tonight, and have a good evening.
Ben, could I just ask you one question?
And go the Crows. Big percentage win last night.
Special meetings, can we make sure that they don't have times like I couldn't get on tonight?
No, I did explain that, Tony. Yep, I'll try to keep that in mind.
And then the password wouldn't work. So yeah, so IT have fixed that problem now.
Okay, good eye.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Yeah. Go West Coast.
Cellar, Crows.
Go the Herns.
See everyone.
See ya.
Bye.